You've spent years believing you need something external to heal yourself: medicines, therapies, miracle solutions. But Buddhist monks discovered 2,500 years ago that your body already has a self-healing system waiting to be activated. The problem is, you were taught to block this natural system with thoughts of fear, anxiety, and disconnection. When you learn to use the 3 Buddhist techniques of mental reprogramming that I'm going to share now, your body starts responding in ways that modern medicine is still trying to understand. The second technique is so powerful that hospitals in Asia have already incorporated it into their treatment protocols. Subscribe to the channel, leave your like and comment from which part of the world you're watching, get comfortable and relax. Let's begin. Have you ever wondered why so many people think true healing can only be found outside themselves, through pills, treatments, or something miraculous someone else provides? It's a belief a lot of us carry, usually without even questioning it, because it's everywhere. We grow up seeing advertisements for medications, miracle cure stories, and society as a whole reassuring us that health comes from whatever new thing is available. This whole mindset can shape our lives in ways we don't totally notice, leading us to not really listen to our own body or trust that maybe it knows how to bounce back and fix itself, at least sometimes. It's kind of wild to realize that for decades, actually probably centuries, this way of thinking has just sort of been the standard, and most people accept it as the only path forward if they get sick or run down. But if you look at certain philosophies like Buddhism, they've approached this whole healing thing from a completely different starting point, and it shakes up a lot of assumptions. A lot of what we believe about healing and getting better from illnesses comes from all the messages we've absorbed around us, not just from experts, but from family, television, and even casual conversation. Every time someone says, "Take a pill for that," or "you need a proper treatment," it reinforces the idea that basically we don't have the power or resources on our own to deal with what's going wrong in our bodies. That can lead to feeling kind of helpless, maybe even anxious, because it turns health into something controlled by others, doctors, companies, or even chance, rather than something we have any real say over. Then if you don't get the results you want, it's easy to fall into disappointment or frustration, thinking you missed your chance or didn't choose the right outside solution. The constant chasing of external fixes can actually pull people further and further away from their own bodies, almost like you end up mistrusting yourself before you even start. But here's the interesting part. If you explore teachings from Buddhism, there's a whole other way to look at healing that isn't about something you need to buy or borrow from somewhere else. One of the basic ideas in Buddhist thinking is that every human has what you could call a natural intelligence, the ability for the body and mind together to move toward balance and repair. It sounds simple, but it's actually pretty radical if you're coming from the standard Western way of approaching illness. The message is that you, just as you are, have some real potential to heal. It's not about denying the value of medicine or expert help, but it shifts the focus back to something inside, something that starts with you and your relationship with your own body and mind. In everyday life, Buddhism encourages people to actually take a look at themselves, not just physically, but mentally and emotionally, and really check in. It suggests observing your thoughts, feelings, and physical ups and downs as closely as possible, sort of like being your own researcher, curious and open to see what's happening beneath the surface. In this approach, you're encouraged to take responsibility for your own sense of well-being, even if you're also relying on doctors or medications when they're needed. It's like saying you are the constant in your own experience, and nobody will ever get to know your signals, stresses, or needs in quite the way you can. It's an invitation to listen, trust, and work with yourself, instead of seeing yourself as broken or reliant on outside fixes for everything. Now, what's actually kind of liberating about this is when you start tuning in and actually listening, maybe pausing long enough to notice pain, discomfort, tension, or whatever else you're carrying in your body or mind, a shift happens. Instead of fighting against your signals or trying to blot them out immediately with whatever's in the medicine cabinet, you create a space for real understanding to grow. Buddhism talks a lot about self-awareness and how it's way more powerful than most of us give it credit for. Self-awareness doesn't mean obsessing over every tiny symptom. It's about honest noticing, which builds a sense of trust in your body's capacity to send clear signals and sometimes actually start the work of fixing itself. It gives you the tools to see if what you're doing, diet, habits, stress levels, are really working for you, and makes it way clearer when you need to make a change. What gets even more interesting is how the mind and body in this model aren't considered separate at all. The idea is that if your mind is anxious, angry, or weighed down for long stretches, your body will eventually show signs, whether that means getting sick more often, feeling exhausted, or having aches and pains that don't quite make sense. Conversely, if you start working with your mind, learning to relax, calm yourself, or develop some focus, your body often reacts by dropping some of that tension or even bouncing back from illness a little faster. This isn't presented like a miracle. It's more about recognizing actual connections that science, too, is starting to see. Approaches like meditation, breathing techniques, or even just being more mindful have been linked to measurable improvements in things like blood pressure, immune function, and pain reduction. The ancient Buddhists just had a head start in realizing these connections. In modern life, it's easy to tune all this out, especially with how busy and overstimulated most of us are. There's so much noise, so much content, so many opinions about what you should or shouldn't feel, eat, or think about. It's overwhelming. Actually carving out time to check in with your own experience can feel like a luxury, but in the model Buddhism suggests, it's not just a nice add-on, it's the foundation of any real healing. The more you pay attention, the more you learn the subtle differences between passing tiredness and deep exhaustion, between a bad mood and the start of real burnout. It makes a difference because when you're aware, you can intervene early with rest, movement, better choices, rather than waiting until everything falls apart and you need outside rescue. Another core piece is the idea that the body's ability to repair itself is not just a fanciful notion or wishful thinking. A ton of research now shows that the body, when given the chance, is constantly doing micro repairs, fighting off bad cells, balancing hormones, clearing out toxins, and generally aiming for balance. This is happening whether you pay attention to it or not, and most of us only realize it when the system gets so overloaded it can't keep up. Buddhism says, what if you supported that process with your actions, thoughts, and attention, instead of disrupting it with more and more stress or disconnect? Part of this support is as simple as practicing regular stillness, breathing exercises, or, especially relevant for people who love multitasking, making space for sleep and real rest, since that's when a lot of this natural repair work hits its peak. There's another interesting part of this idea, and it's about trust. A lot of people, when they first try to turn inward, find themselves frustrated. It feels slow, uncertain, or even like nothing is happening for a while. That's partly because most of us have been trained for years to expect quick fixes, immediate relief, and noticeable changes within days or weeks, thanks to medication commercials and fast-paced health trends. Buddhism teaches patience and non-attachment to quick results, suggesting that the trust you build with your body actually makes a difference over time. It's the difference between fighting your symptoms, and therefore stressing yourself out more, and working alongside your body as an ally, which leads to steadier, more sustainable improvements, even if they're quiet at first. Now, it's also important to be real about what inner healing means. Buddhist philosophy doesn't tell people to ignore serious symptoms or skip necessary medical treatment. It isn't setting up some competition between doctors and self-care. It simply says, before you run to the next solution or give up hope in your own potential, pause and see what's going on inside you already. Sometimes what looks like an external problem, a recurring headache, a skin flare-up, tension in the shoulders, can be tracked back to mental habits, stressors, or ignored emotions. Other times, medical intervention is absolutely essential. The Buddhist approach is about making sure both sides of the healing process, inner and outer, are given serious attention, and you don't lose sight of your own power just because other helpers are involved. This approach isn't just about healing when you're already ill either. It affects how you live day to day, how you deal with small aches before they become chronic issues, how you rest, what foods you choose, and even how you bounce back from emotional knocks. It gives people a way to feel active, rather than passive, in their health, which can be surprisingly energizing and even comforting, especially if you've been stuck feeling like you're just at the mercy of outside circumstances. Cultivating this sense of inner authority or confidence regarding your health doesn't mean you suddenly become invincible, but it means setbacks feel less overwhelming and a lot more manageable because you have tools and trust in yourself. There's a kind of freedom in stepping back from the belief that you're just a collection of symptoms waiting for some expert to tell you what's wrong, and starting to see yourself as someone whose participation is not just helpful, but maybe crucial to the healing process. This might start with very small actions, like sipping herbal tea, taking 2 minutes for deep breathing, or simply spending 5 minutes before bed doing a body scan, checking in with each part of yourself. In Buddhist tradition, these actions aren't seen as fluffy or secondary. They're a real part of building up your reserves and letting your system know it's safe to relax, which is when a lot of the best repair happens. One of the most practical parts of this inner healing posture is learning how to quiet the mind, at least some of the time, especially before bed. We know now from lots of sleep science that the hours you spend asleep are when your body isn't just resting. It's actively repairing tissue, recalibrating hormones, and sorting through information and stress from the day. In Buddhism, sleep is not wasted or passive. It's an incredibly useful, even sacred time for healing to unfold. Learning to go into sleep with a little calm and trust, rather than worry or distraction, is something anyone can experiment with, whether they're into spiritual teachings or not. Actually, this is where things like sleep listening or playing calming tracks as you drift off start to make a real difference. The body gets a double signal, through sound and intention, that it's safe to go on autopilot and do what it's designed to do. As this whole shift from depending on outside fixes to building inner trust unfolds, people can notice some subtle but important changes happening. Maybe it's being less reactive to stress, waking up with fewer aches, or just feeling more steady when things around you are chaotic. None of this means you'll never get thrown off course, but it adds resilience, a sense that even when things go wrong, you're not starting from zero, because you have a living relationship with your own well-being. The illusion that everything you need is external starts to fade a bit, and you begin to see how much is already present inside you, waiting to be acknowledged or nurtured. To wrap this all up, the move from relying only on pills, therapies, or one-off cures to believing in your body's ability to heal, with just a little support from your attention and habits, doesn't have to be complicated or extreme. It's really about remembering the resources you've always had, practicing noticing and responding to what's happening inside, and knowing that even small acts, breathing, observing, resting, are meaningful. It's about living as if your body is not just a project for others to work on, but a partner you can actually collaborate with. By building that trust, you open up a path where healing feels possible, not by waiting for something from outside, but by using what's always been within you, patiently, gently, step by step. Once you get used to thinking about your own healing as something you can actually participate in, the whole way you look at your body, your mind, and how they work together starts to change. A lot of people are so used to separating what happens in their head from what goes on in their body, but Buddhism takes it in another direction. In this perspective, the mind and body are not just two things running alongside each other. They're seen as totally linked. This isn't just about how stress or sadness can mess with your stomach or make you tired. It goes deeper. It's about the idea that every single thought, emotion, or mental habit you have actually leaves a mark somewhere in your body over days, weeks, and even years, and vice versa. The health of the body and the state of the mind are, in this view, woven together so tightly that when you improve one, you naturally help the other. In Western medicine, there's this classic pattern of splitting things up. Doctors for physical stuff, therapists for the mental side, and often the two don't talk much even though they're dealing with the same person. But Buddhism invites you to take a step back and see how your thoughts, your beliefs, and even your automatic reactions can start to show up physically. Think about what happens when someone gets stuck in traffic every day on their way to work. If their mind is full of worry or irritation day in and day out, there might be headaches, a tense neck, restless sleep, or even something stronger in the long run because that tension is getting stored, not just felt. It adds up quietly if you're not paying attention. What really makes this approach so useful is that it doesn't just stop at saying, yeah, stress is bad for you. It gets a bit more specific about how these mind-body patterns operate. In Buddhism, there's an understanding that most people aren't just living with their daily schedule or their genetic makeup. They're also living inside a pretty steady stream of thoughts. Sometimes these are obviously negative, like fear, worry, regret, or anger. But a lot of them are just habits running in the background, shaping the tone of your day without you even realizing it. Over time, these can kind of color your entire world. If someone's mind is used to scanning for problems problems or expecting the worst, the body gets stuck in a slight defense mode. Shoulders tense, heart rate stays up, digestion gets weird. The body is doing its job by adapting to what the mind expects, but if that's always tension or threat, it isn't good for health in the long run. A key part of this idea is that emotions don't just pass by. Certain feelings, especially things like fear and anxiety, really can create blocks in the body's natural flow of energy. That sounds a little mystical, but you can spot the physical signs easily. Maybe it's shallow breathing, a constant knot in the stomach, or trouble relaxing the muscles. In more technical terms, what's going on is the nervous system is staying stuck in a kind of high alert phase. The body isn't able to jump into its healing or restorative mode because it thinks, at some low level, that it needs to be ready for trouble. This makes the connection between mind and body simple to understand. What's up top, even if you ignore it, shows up below the neck. Most people want real, practical ways to break these patterns instead of just hearing about them. That's where Buddhist practice and some modern wellness techniques actually meet up well. The first step is recognizing and accepting that the mind and body are one system, not two separate things. It's not just an idea, it's something you can feel if you start looking for it. For example, if you try simple breathing exercises or short meditations, you might notice your body relax as your thoughts calm down. Or if you get some exercise or massage and physical tension releases, your mood might get lighter almost right away. Little changes on one side often nudge the other side. It's a kind of feedback loop. Your mind influences your body influences your mind, and the loop keeps repeating all day, every day. To begin working with this loop, Buddhism starts with awareness. You could call this mindfulness, but that word gets thrown around a lot, so it helps to keep things simple. It just means noticing what's going on without rushing to fix it or judge yourself for it. You might pay attention to your breathing, check in with your jaw or your shoulders, or just notice what you're feeling emotionally. Are you restless? Frustrated? Is there a tightness? The trick is not to try to change it right away, but just see it clearly. This can sound so basic that people wonder if it really makes any difference, but over time, building this habit helps you spot patterns and triggers way before they blow up into something bigger, like getting sick or feeling completely burnt out. The next step is a little surprising. A lot of Buddhist-inspired techniques, especially around healing, center on exploring these connections not just during meditation or sitting quietly, but also in everyday moments, while eating, working, even falling asleep. This is where the practice of sleep listening steps in. The idea is that right before and during sleep, your mind is much more open to new ideas and gentle changes. If you listen to guided meditations, calming talks, or positive affirmations as you're falling asleep, you're not only relaxing your mind, but also sending a signal to your body to let go, to stop holding on to tension, and to start shifting toward repair mode. This works because your subconscious mind, the part running all your habits and background stress, doesn't argue as much with new ideas when you're relaxed or drifting off to sleep. What makes this so different from a standard approach to health is that it acknowledges what people have felt for ages, even if they didn't have the words for it. You might hear someone say, "I just knew something was off before I got sick," or "I felt lighter after talking it out or meditating." These responses make sense under the Buddhist model because as the mind lets go of old patterns, the body has more freedom to move into what science calls homeostasis, or just plain balance. This isn't a mysterious power. It's your nervous system, your immune responses, your sleep cycles, all working a little smoother because the pressure has eased off. So why is sleep so central to this? For most people, the only time the body gets a real break from outside demands is in deep sleep. Buddhist traditions have long recognized sleep as a window where healing is amplified, because the mind isn't interfering as much. When you add gentle guidance through sound, breath, or words, your natural system of repair can kick in even stronger. There's research nowadays that shows people who practice mindfulness and calming routines before sleep report better quality rest, fewer nightmares, less waking during the night, and sometimes even quicker recovery from minor illnesses. It's not about positive thinking or pretending problems don't exist. It's using the unity of mind and body for practical results. Another piece of the Buddhist take is that when you accept the mind-body link, you stop seeing physical symptoms as the enemy. If the body aches, feels tired, or acts up, it's often just delivering a message from the deeper layers of your experience. Instead of jumping to silence those symptoms, the suggestion is to get curious about them. Is there something you're holding onto that's not obvious? Are you ignoring signs of mental strain or emotional overload? When these signals get recognized and you start making choices from a place of awareness, the body can shift more easily out of fight or flight into what's called rest and digest, the real healing and recovery state. This is where sleep listening and Buddhist-inspired routines can become an actual game changer for people feeling stuck. They're not just relaxing rituals, they're a way to practice this unity, to gently steer the mind and body toward a more balanced state night by night. Even small rituals can help. Noticing your breath as you lay down, playing tracks with calm guidance or soft music, setting an intention to let go of whatever you carried during the day. These aren't just for reducing stress in the moment. Over many nights, they slowly untangle a lot of built-up reactions, frustrations, or background worries, so that the physical side can start catching up and healing at a deeper level. The science behind all this is catching up too. Researchers now know that chronic negative emotions like fear or anxiety can trigger tiny but ongoing bursts of stress chemistry. Over time, that increases inflammation, tightens blood vessels, and makes it harder for the body's natural repair systems to do their work. This doesn't just raise the risk for big dramatic health issues, it also makes people more likely to feel run down, catch colds more often, or have trouble bouncing back from everyday stress. On the other hand, practices that combine gentle attention with relaxation, like meditation or positive sleep listening, seem to lower those same stress chemicals, making immune and repair systems more active. Buddhism goes one step further and says this works best when you treat the mind and body as partners in everything. If you're intentional about calming your thoughts, treating your body kindly, and using both modern support and inner practices, you don't just get physical benefits. You often feel lighter, more stable, and less thrown by setbacks. This doesn't mean you'll never face illness again, but it does mean you meet challenges with better tools and less fear. You trust what your body is telling you without feeling so anxious or confused by it. Most importantly, taking this approach day to day isn't complicated or out of reach. You don't need anything fancy to benefit. It starts by simply checking in with your own state every now and then, not ignoring signals or brushing things off, and making small adjustments, like a minute of mindful breathing, a brief stretch, an extra 2 minutes to reflect before bed. By being honest with yourself and acknowledging when the mind is wound up or the body is worn down, you can spot imbalances early, which science agrees is crucial for avoiding longer-term problems. Even as more people turn to apps, videos, or soundtracks to help them drift off at night, the real point is not about the content itself, it's about using those tools to back up this natural unity. When you're stressed, upset, or tired, playing a series of calming affirmations or guided meditations as you settle down can nudge your internal systems in the right direction, not through force, but through gentle repetition and familiarity. Over time, the body and mind start to expect rest at a certain time, respond faster to calming signals, and shake off minor aches or tension more quickly. People who build regular routines around this, whether it's sleep listening or another quiet, connected ritual at night, tend to say they feel less scattered during the day, have more steady energy, and even recover from small setbacks or illnesses faster. Some mention sleeping deeper, others just feel less reactive to noise or disruptions the next day. It's not about perfection, but about building a strong baseline where the connection between what's happening in the mind and what shows up in the body is less of a mystery and more of a reliable link. There's also something to be said for not overcomplicating things. Buddhist traditions don't require hours of silent meditation or special training to practice mind-body unity. They emphasize regular, small awareness moments that add up. This could mean taking a walk while actually noticing your surroundings, eating meals slowly and paying attention to taste and fullness, or simply lying down at night and letting your mind drift as gentle music or words help you unwind. Over weeks and months, these repeated moments of awareness and acceptance seem to retrain not just your habits, but even how your body responds to stress, which is exactly what modern neurobiology is starting to prove. It's pretty common at first for people to doubt that something so simple could have any real impact, but when you remember how often small stressors add up, missed sleep, tension at work, skipped meals, holding in emotions, it makes sense that a steady stream of small positive moments could add up too. Buddhism's model is about tipping the scales back the other way, giving your mind and body a real shot at syncing up, especially during key moments like falling asleep or waking up. Another practical point is how this unity view changes everyday decisions. Once you accept that mental habits show up physically, you might start choosing routines that support both, like avoiding stimulating screens late at night, drinking calming teas, or even writing down worries before bed. Each of these little habits is a signal to both mind and body to settle, and over time they become stronger patterns, almost automatic. When setbacks happen, when you get sick or stressed, it becomes easier to bounce back because you're not working against your own system, but supporting it from the ground up. Looking at how all this ties into community, Buddhist teachings often highlight connection, not just inside yourself, but also with others. When you're calm and balanced, you're more likely to be kind, patient, and steady with family, friends, or co-workers. Your social world improves, which, science now shows, also supports physical health over the long haul. This isn't about isolation or self-absorption. Taking care of the unity in your own mind and body makes you better company, a more dependable parent or partner, and helps reinforce a kind of harmony in your whole environment. Ultimately, the habit of recognizing and supporting mind-body unity isn't just something extra to try if everything else fails. In both Buddhism and growing piles of research, it's turning into the foundation for real health over the long term. Small daily choices, supported by techniques like sleep listening or gentle reflection, give you a practical, hands-on way to nudge your whole system back to health whenever it gets off track. You gain confidence that your thoughts, mood, and even those physical aches are all connected threads in the same tapestry of health. Step by step, night by night, this adds up to deeper rest, steadier moods, and a body that can heal and bounce back with more ease, often without anyone outside you noticing, but with results you start to feel from the inside out. The great thing about building that mind-body connection is that it opens the door to exploring some pretty fascinating tools that can actually start to change how you feel both physically and mentally. One tool that's caught a lot of attention in recent years is something called sleep listening. It might sound a bit new age at first, but when you dig into it, there's actually a pretty solid base of science behind how and why it works, especially when you think about how your brain is wired to adapt, heal, and even rewrite old patterns if given the right conditions. Sleep listening is about taking advantage of the hours you're asleep, when the brain is in a completely different state compared to when you're awake and distracted. People are using this time not just for rest, but as a way to guide their subconscious to do a bit of healing work and bring their systems back into better balance. So let's get into what's really happening in your brain at night and why these hours are such an opportunity for change. Scientists have shown that when you sleep, especially during the deeper stages, your brain doesn't switch off. Instead, it actually gets hard to work on things like cleaning up old waste proteins, filing memories, and letting your nervous system reset after everything you throw at it during the day. Your conscious mind goes quiet, but your subconscious, which is the part responsible for routine behaviors and automatic responses, is still paying attention to input from the senses. This is where sleep listening makes sense. People play gentle guided meditations, certain soundscapes, or positive statements, sometimes called affirmations, while they sleep. The idea is that since the critical, judging part of the brain is less active, these messages are more likely to slip in and start replacing old beliefs and stress patterns that you might not even know you carry. Scientists call this kind of change neuroplasticity. Neuroplasticity is the ability your brain has to keep making new connections all your life. When you repeat a behavior or are exposed to the same idea or feeling often enough, those neurons in your brain form stronger links. That's why habits, good or bad, are so hard to break. The brain is literally wired to fall back on well-used patterns, but the same process means that with enough repetition and the right environment, those patterns can be changed. Sleep, particularly the light stages and just as you're falling asleep or waking up, seems to be a prime time for this rewiring. Sounds or messages played during sleep don't get analyzed or blocked in the same way they might during the day. Your brain might not process the information with logical reasoning, but it soaks up the emotional tone, the sense of relaxation, or the steady, positive phrases and starts to carve out some new grooves in how it reacts to stress, anxiety, or pain. a lot of people want to know if there's any real proof behind this, or if it's just positive thinking taken to the next level. The truth is, there have been quite a few studies that back up the basics. For instance, researchers have found that if you present people with information or suggestions right as they're drifting into sleep, or even in certain phases of deep sleep, the brain actually registers those sounds differently than when people are wide awake. Some experiments have played simple phrases like, "I am calm," or "My body is safe," to sleeping participants, and then noticed changes in how stressed these people were, their heart rates, or even the decisions they made the next day. Other studies have used gentle tones or music designed to encourage deep breathing or relax the body, and found measurable changes in inflammation markers or how quickly the body recovers from exertion. The Buddhist angle on all of this is also worth talking about because, for a very long time, traditions from that part of the world have used sound and guided meditations in a way that fits perfectly with these scientific findings. Buddhist sleep practices often use soft chanting, certain repeated phrases known as mantras, or simple story-like scripts that guide the mind toward compassion, safety, or body awareness while the person drifts off. The focus isn't on fixing anything, but more about gently telling the mind and body that it's okay to relax, let go, and do the work of repair. Over time, this kind of practice has been shown to lower stress hormones, allow for deeper sleep, and in some cases, even change how people explain their own health struggles. One thing people often wonder about is whether these sleep listening practices actually replace something that's missing, or if they just act as a kind of background noise. The interesting thing is, for some people, these gentle messages begin to chip away at patterns that the awake mind might struggle to deal with. You might not even notice the changes at first, maybe a little less tension when waking up, or less racing thoughts before falling asleep. For others, the effect builds over weeks or months as the subconscious gets used to a new feeling of calm or acceptance. This is the same kind of repetition that helps people change habits, toothbrushing, stretching, even learning a new language, but tuned toward the mind's stress reactions and the body's ability to bounce back. Guided meditations and soundtracks designed specifically for sleep usually stick to simple patterns. Some will gently lead you through relaxing the body part by part, reminding your breath to slow down, or suggesting images of safety and wellness. Others are more focused on repeating positive phrases, but the basic idea is not to force anything, just to give your subconscious a new, calmer script to follow. The brain actually responds to tone, pacing, and even the warmth in a speaker's voice, so it's not just the words being used. The whole mood of the recording can help lead the brain into more restful patterns. It's also worth mentioning that not everybody responds to these practices in the same way, and that's completely normal. People who are more anxious or light sleepers might need more time to get used to a new bedtime routine. Some find music with no words or very soft voices work best, while others prefer subtle background sounds like nature noises or gentle chimes. The essential thing is to find what's comfortable for you and what doesn't interrupt your own sleep cycle. Over time, most people notice they're less likely to drag old worries or stress into their sleep, and they get into deeper, more restorative stages easier. Modern neuroscience supports the idea that the brain is extremely plastic, not rigid. Even habits and beliefs that have been around for decades can start to shift if they're given the right support. This is why therapies that rely on repetition, guided imagery, or slow, consistent change, like cognitive behavioral therapy, can be so helpful. When you add in the unique opportunity that sleep provides by lowering mental defenses, your efforts don't take as much willpower. You're letting change happen in the background while your conscious mind is out of the way. Parents sometimes try this approach naturally with their kids, using gentle stories or calming bedtime routines, often completely unaware that they're helping set up healthy patterns for the brain. It's only when you look at it through the lens of sleep listening and neuroplasticity that you see the same effect can be achieved, at least in part, with adults. This is especially important for folks who have struggled with sleep for a long time, either from stress, trauma, or just disruptive habits. For them, sleep listening is not a miracle fix, but more like a steady nudge that helps get their brain out of the emergency mode and into a safer pattern. There's another interesting side to this. What you hear during sleep can start to fade into how you react when you're awake. Let's say you've been listening to a calm meditation that says things like, "You are safe," or "Your body can heal." Over time, you might notice that during the day, stressful situations don't hit as hard, your mind finds a calm spot more easily, or you're just more patient with yourself. These shifts are the real goal. Your mind is starting to replace old alarm bells with a more calming message, and the body follows suit. This is especially helpful for folks dealing with chronic pain, low-grade anxiety, and those who always seem to be on the edge of getting sick but never quite know why. In the bigger picture, Buddhist teachings mix in some practices around self-compassion and non-judgment, which really help the effects of sleep listening stick. If you can train yourself to let go of self-criticism and simply welcome whatever you're feeling, your brain and body can relax deeper into sleep and start those subtle changes that only happen when you're not trying so hard. It's a way of showing your nervous system that it's all right to turn the dial down for the night. The repetition and acceptance reinforced during sleep gradually bleed into waking life, often making it easier to handle setbacks or physical symptoms without spiraling into panic or disappointment. To understand just how much power sleep and sleep listening have over your physical health, it's good to look at what happens when sleep is missing or broken. Lack of good rest makes inflammation rise, weakens the immune system, throws off hormones, and makes recovery from injury much slower. It also makes moods more unstable and can heighten pain, since the body never gets a full chance to reset. When you add soothing input to your sleep, it's like you're doubling down on the body's natural repair crew. You may not even be aware it's happening, but your immune cells, muscles, and brain are able to do their jobs with less interruption. Research has looked at people using certain types of sleep listening for just a few weeks and seen positive changes, not just in subjective reports, meaning how people say they feel, but in actual blood markers. Levels of inflammatory chemicals that make pain or swelling worse can come down, while the ones connected to healing tend to go up. Your brain also starts to favor pathways that link relaxation with safety, rather than always defaulting to stress and tension. This is the sort of rewiring that can turn a vicious cycle of bad sleep and illness into a virtuous cycle of deeper rest and speedier healing. Another unique thing about sleep listening is that it's totally flexible and can be tailored to fit whatever's most comfortable and appealing to each person. Some people prefer soft instrumental music, others want recordings with simple breathing cues, and others go for spoken visualization that help them imagine lightness or warmth in different areas of the body. Buddhism is less concerned with sticking to a single formula and more about what actually helps the individual let go of overthinking at night. There isn't a competition around which approach is best. The common theme is guiding the mind and body toward a shared state of safety and quiet. Given how fragmented and busy modern life is, being able to rebuild positive habits without extra work or discipline during the day makes this technique pretty practical. You don't need to learn complicated methods or spend extra money. Recordings are widely available for free, and there's no special technology required besides a way to play sounds quietly at night. Some people eventually find they outgrow the need for nightly input and just benefit from the deeper sleep pattern that sleep listening helped to establish. It becomes a new normal, one that helps the body heal, calm, and settle after the constant buzz of the day. The question a lot of people ask is, how long does it take to see results? Neuroscience would say it depends on a few things: how stressed you've been, how sensitive you are to sound, what kind of messages are used, and how consistent you are with the habit. For some, a night or two shows a big difference. For others, it's a few weeks or even longer. The important thing to remember is that small improvements, when built on top of each other over days and weeks, can make quite a big difference in the long run. This is the same logic as any other gentle, repetitive exercise. You may not notice the tiny changes each day, but look back after a month or two, and you might be surprised at how much easier you recover, settle, and sleep. Anyone curious about these ideas doesn't have to dive in all at once. Starting with just a few minutes of a calming recording before bed, or maybe during a nap, is enough to get a sense of whether your mind responds to this kind of gentle input. Keeping an open mind, not expecting instant miracles, but being willing to notice small differences in how you feel before and after sleep, helps keep the experience grounded and real. Sometimes people realize only after stopping for a while that their stress got worse, or their sleep felt shallow without the support of sleep listening. Friendliness toward yourself is key in making these habits last. Buddhism encourages this attitude of calm perseverance, sticking with the practice not as a test of discipline but as an act of care for your own well-being. When setbacks happen, like an extra stressful week, you just start fresh instead of criticizing yourself or thinking the process has failed. The real reward is a mind and body that over time feel more connected, stable, and able to manage the ordinary ups and downs of life without falling into old negative cycles. It's worth noting that sleep listening and the brain's adaptability are not here as replacements for medical care or professional advice when something serious is going on. Their strength is in the subtle shifts, the slow but steady move from tension to calm, from disconnection to inner trust. For many people, these tools offer a sense of empowerment, a way to take nightly action that helps support whatever other approaches they're using to get better or stabilize their health. This sense of being able to do something every night, even if it's as simple as listening as you fall asleep, can make a big emotional difference on its own. Last but not least, as more stories and research pile up, it's clear that sleep listening, combined with the natural plasticity of the brain, is a practical way to help the mind and body return to a healthier baseline, especially in a world that rarely allows us to switch off. Using the quiet of the night as an ally instead of just dead time means you're turning possible stress into a window for healing, making use of hours you'd already be asleep. It's a straightforward, non-invasive method that anyone can try, adapt, and build into a personal routine, whether you're following Buddhist teachings, drawing on new scientific discoveries, or just looking for a way to deal with modern life's constant noise. You don't have to change everything or chase perfection. Sometimes it's just about giving yourself a better chance to rest, reset, and let your brain and body do what they were wired to do all along. When sleep listening and neuroplasticity start to show you that positive change is possible, the next really practical move is learning how to apply Buddhist techniques that focus on mindful observation and acceptance. What's different about mindful observation, especially in the context of healing, is that it's not about striving to force your body or mind to be a certain way. Most people are taught from a young age to change what feels uncomfortable as soon as possible. If you have a headache, you grab medicine. If your mood drops, you distract yourself. If a stressful thought pops up, you run whatever mental trick you know to shove it away. But Buddhist-based healing methods approach this from a totally different direction. The starting point is to simply watch what's happening as closely as you can, without judgment or resistance, even when the experience isn't what you choose for yourself. Let's break down how this looks in real life. Say you're lying in bed and a wave of anxiety comes up. Instead of rushing to make it disappear, the practice actually invites you to see that anxiety. Notice where it sits in your body. Maybe it's a tightening in your chest or a fluttering in your stomach. You don't start explaining it or trying to fix it, and you definitely don't jump to the future where you assume something bad will happen. You just observe. You recognize, here's that familiar tight feeling, and label it not with drama but with a quiet curiosity. For a lot of people, this step alone brings at least a little relief, because so much of the suffering is from fighting with the feeling rather than the feeling itself. With sleep listening, these skills get woven right into the wind-down routine. Many guided meditations start by having you scan through the body part by part. Head, forehead, jaw, shoulders, arms, all the way down to your feet. You're guided to simply notice what's there. Maybe tingling, throbbing, warmth, cold, or nothing at all. What's important is that you don't have to label any sensation as bad or good. It just is. It's information. You begin to see each ache, tight spot, or even pleasant relaxation as something natural, something your body is communicating at that moment. What you're really doing is letting your system relax, because you're no longer sending subtle signals to tense up, push away, or rush into action. A big reason why this kind of mindful observation works is because so much of our pain and discomfort is made worse by the extra layer of stress, judgment, or tension we add on top. If you've ever had trouble sleeping and heard your mind start racing with thoughts like, "I'll never fall asleep, I'll be exhausted tomorrow, why can't I just calm down?" You know this cycle. The mind creates a story of resistance against what's happening, and the body reacts by pumping out more stress hormones, making it even less likely that you'll relax. But if you use mindful observation, if you just watch the insomnia or discomfort as it unfolds, without taking sides or demanding a different experience, your body actually starts to calm itself. The nervous system catches the message that things aren't as urgent as they seemed. A lot of the energy goes out of the worry, because you're not feeding it by fighting. Acceptance is the second half of this process, and people sometimes confuse it with giving up or resigning themselves to never feeling better. That's not what's being encouraged here. Acceptance in the Buddhist tradition is a kind of active welcoming of whatever is already true in the present moment, even if you hope for change in the long run. Imagine you're dealing with persistent back pain. The usual route might be to grit your teeth, distract yourself, or get angry about it over and over each day. Acceptance in this technique means acknowledging every sensation for what it is, without tacking on a mental story about how unfair, scary, or permanent it is. You greet the pain each time it shows up, as if you're looking at it for the first time. This lets the body exit fight mode and slip closer to the recovery state. So, how does sleep listening actually help practice acceptance and mindful observation? These guided audio sessions often start with very gentle, slow instructions. Notice the feeling of your body against the mattress. Feel the weight of your head. Allow your arms to rest heavily. Bit by bit, your awareness settles on sensations instead of racing thoughts. If something hurts or feels uncomfortable, the audio gently encourages you to stay with that sensation for a few moments. Instead of recoiling from it, you're taught to breathe into it, observe it, and remember that sensations come and go, constantly shifting like waves. The effect is that your body's stress response starts to wind down, and you move closer to the parasympathetic state, the rest and digest mode where healing actually happens. Many people notice that with regular practice, their overall stress level drops, not because they have fewer problems, but because they stop reacting so intensely to every little fluctuation. Life still happens. There are still aches, worries, and unexpected issues. But you gain a sense of space between the feeling and the urge to fix or control it. That space is where your body's own wisdom has room to work without interruption. Your heart rate settles, your breathing deepens, and the feeling of tightness or pain may even start to recede a bit as resistance drops. You might still need medicine or outside help, but what changes is that your body can make better use of every healing tool because it's not locked in a battle with itself. A big side benefit is how this approach helps with chronic issues, things like long-term pain, ongoing anxiety, or habits that just don't budge with willpower. Current science backs this up. There's a whole field called mindfulness-based stress reduction. People dealing with everything from migraines to autoimmune struggles have shown real improvement by using mindful observation and acceptance as part of their daily routines. What the studies suggest, and what Buddhist practice figured out centuries before, is that when you stop trying to force your body or mind to change and simply let them be as they are for a while, you often create the right conditions for gentle improvement. The long-term benefit here is not just physical, it's how you start relating to yourself. Little by little, you build a habit of patience and a friendlier approach to tough symptoms or thoughts. The urge to panic, get tense, or blame yourself gets replaced with curiosity, like you're an explorer noticing what your own mind and body can do. Over the weeks, you'll find that the volume on both physical pain and mental stress often goes down. Sleep becomes deeper and feels more restorative. Worry about symptoms you can't control doesn't take over your entire night. This makes you better equipped to handle whatever comes up, nights when you don't sleep well, surprises the next morning, or flare-ups of old issues. To make this more practical, imagine a typical guided body scan during a sleep listening session. You get cues like, notice the sensation in your forehead. Is it tense or relaxed? Just observe. There's no demand to change what you find. After a few moments, the guide moves to your eyes, cheeks, jaw, and so on. The goal is not to achieve perfect relaxation, but to bring honest, moment-to-moment awareness to each area without complaint or expectation. The more you repeat this kind of practice, the more your body recognizes that it's safe to let down its guard. Muscles unclench, aches fade, and sleep comes more smoothly, not because you did it right, but because you stopped battling what's true in that moment. Another reason this approach is so effective is the way it trains your nervous system. People often describe feeling on edge or never able to relax, even when everything is quiet. What's happening internally is the fight or flight system has been switched on so often it doesn't know when to turn off. Mindful observation lets your body get used to neutrality, to simply being present without the extra adrenaline or stress response. When you lay down this evening and spend 10 or 15 minutes following this guidance, you're retraining your system to expect calm and safety, even if discomfort or strong emotions are present. What's really interesting is that these benefits aren't just temporary. Over weeks, mindful observation builds new brain connections. This physical change in the brain supports everything from better sleep to faster recovery from injuries or sickness. The link isn't mystical. It's about lowering the constant trickle of stress hormones and giving your body the space to do what it does best. People using these techniques often report fewer flare-ups of chronic issues, less severity when symptoms hit, and greater resilience during tough times. Even those dealing with heavy, persistent pain sometimes find they suffer less because the mental layer of resistance, judgment, and panic has softened. If you're new to all this, starting small is fine. 1 minute of mindful body awareness at bedtime is much better than none. In fact, sometimes only a few breaths of honest, non-judging observation are enough to shift your system, if only slightly, toward better rest. As you get used to it, you can stretch the practice a little longer, exploring each part of your body as you prepare for sleep. The more you make it a habit, especially if paired with gentle audio or guided practice, the easier it becomes for your body to remember how to let go, even when things are hectic or uncertain. It's also important to keep expectations reasonable. Progress can be subtle and slow. You might not notice massive changes after one night, but over a few weeks or a month, signs show up. Sleep might come more quickly. There's less tension accumulated in your neck, jaw, or back. Morning moods improve, and your energy through the day is steadier. That's your body and mind responding to the drop in resistance and the growing trust that you're not in perpetual conflict with yourself. You get to carry this friendlier approach into other moments, on busy mornings, stressful work days, or when unexpected aches show up. This technique works for all ages and backgrounds. Kids benefit from learning to check in with how they feel before bed, and older adults often find mindful observation helps them navigate the aches and restlessness that come with age. It costs nothing, requires no equipment, and can take as little or as much time as you want. If you already have a nighttime routine, even adding 3 minutes of silent noticing before you listen to music or a guided meditation can make all the difference for how easily your body transitions to healing rest. Another key part is the non-judging mindset. It takes some practice, especially for people who are used to being really hard on themselves about not sleeping well, not healing fast enough, or just having too many racing thoughts. Mindful observation means dropping that script. Each sensation, thought, or emotion is just part of what's real right now. You're allowed to want change in the future, but for these moments, the only job is to see clearly and let go of the urge to fight. If you keep at this day by day, a sense of trust starts to build. You discover you're stronger and more adaptable than you thought because you're no longer draining energy by struggling with every uncomfortable moment. This frees up resources within your body for actual recovery, not just short-term comfort. Aches move through more quickly, stress doesn't ramp up as often, and you get used to riding out ups and downs with a steadier foundation. When it comes to sleep listening, the best way to use mindful observation is to let the audio do most of the guiding, especially when you're tired. Relax into the sound of the voice, follow along as best as you can, and don't worry if your mind drifts or you fall asleep mid-practice. That's part of the process. The main thing is showing up with an attitude of gentle curiosity, even for a few moments. Your body and mind will do the rest. All told, mindful observation and acceptance offer a kind of quiet superpower for healing. They reconnect you with what's already going on, help your system settle down, and lay the groundwork for all the other tools you might use, whether that's medicine, therapy, nutrition, or movement. Instead of pushing yourself to reach some perfect state of health, you learn to work with the present exactly as it is. Over time, this builds resilience, deepens sleep, and lets your body get on with the work of healing night after night. When you spend some time exploring mindful observation and acceptance, something else starts to become clear in the way the body and mind operate. A core part of what keeps people tense or unwell is the presence or absence of compassion. It isn't just a nice, fuzzy word about being gentle with others. In Buddhist practice, compassion, especially directed inward, is recognized as a true healing force. What's interesting is that science has jumped in here too, showing that compassion actually changes things physically, down to the chemistry in your blood. Hospitals and clinics in places like Japan, Thailand, and even Western cities now teach meditation styles that are rooted in compassion because over and over, people who practice them often recover faster and deal better with pain, anxiety, and chronic illness. If you're new to this, compassion meditation is exactly what it sounds like. It's a training where instead of pushing for calm or forcing your mind to empty, you call up warm feelings of care, softness, or even forgiveness, first for yourself, then sometimes for others. The point is not to deny what's difficult, but to allow an attitude of friendliness toward your experience, especially when you notice discomfort or distress. Most people find this much trickier than it looks, especially if they have a history of being hard on themselves. That's completely normal, and the practice is built for just this kind of stuckness. Here's how it often works in guided sessions, including those you'd find in sleep listening routines. As the audio begins, you might be led through a few breaths to relax the body, and then the guide will ask you to imagine being filled or surrounded by warmth or light or a gentle feeling. Sometimes the wording is, "May I be safe?" "May I be peaceful?" or even, "May I accept myself as I am?" These aren't just pretty phrases. They're a way of gradually shifting how your brain sees you, moving from criticism, fear, or shame toward inclusion and kindness. Often, once you've tried this for a while, the guidance extends outward, imagining someone you love, someone neutral, or even someone you have trouble with, and wishing them peace or healing too. There's a structure to it, gently training the nervous system in the same way physical therapy trains a muscle, not by forcing, but by showing what's possible and repeating small movements until they get easier. When compassion meditation is used as part of sleep listening, it merges with all the calm, slow rhythms the brain expects for good rest. You can listen as you're winding down, while lying in bed, or even as you drift in and out of sleep. Research shows that the feelings produced during this meditation, a genuine sense of being cared for or included, release powerful chemicals in the brain. These are things like oxytocin, sometimes called the bonding hormone, and it lowers the stress chemicals like cortisol and adrenaline. If you do it night after night, your baseline stress level begins to shift. Your body reduces what's called allostatic load, which is basically the wear and tear that comes from repeated stress over years. So instead of spending your nights with your body on edge, ready for danger, compassion meditation tells your system, it's safe now, you can repair. The effects go beyond just emotional peace. For instance, in a number of clinical studies, people practicing compassion-based meditation had stronger immune responses, better blood sugar levels, and even speedier wound healing. Something about receiving or even simply visualizing kindness turns down inflammation throughout the body. This isn't just about perception, it shows up in lab results. When the nervous system stops running the fight or flight program all the time, energy is freed up for digestion, tissue repair, and deeper sleep. That's why hospitals have begun offering these practices, not as a replacement for medical care, but as a true support alongside whatever else a patient is doing to recover. Another really interesting discovery is that compassion meditation doesn't have to take hours or involve any complicated ritual. Even 10 or 15 minutes a night, especially as you're falling asleep, can make a difference. That's perfect for sleep listening routines, which are already focused on the in-between space where you're not fully awake but not gone for the night either. During these sessions, your mind is less resistant, more open to new emotional habits, and less likely to fall into old ruts of self-judgment and anxiety. Think about how this actually feels for someone who's struggling with pain, stress, or a long-term condition. Instead of lying awake, blaming themselves, getting frustrated, or feeling cut off, they hear a calm, trustworthy voice guiding them to offer themselves some softness instead. Sometimes just the act of hearing, "It's okay to feel what you feel," or "Your body is doing the best it can right now," turns down the volume on panic and rises up a sense of comfort. It may not fix everything by morning, but it keeps the mind and body out of the chronic emergency zone, where healing is much harder. Expanding compassion beyond yourself is also a cornerstone of Buddhist health practices. When you can generate warm feelings for others, friends, strangers, even difficult people, you strengthen connections in your brain that are linked to cooperation, patience, and long-term stability. Social bonds are known to impact physical health, including heart function and immune resilience. So when these meditations include a wish for the well-being of others, you're not just being idealistic, you're actually fostering biochemical changes that benefit you too. And since so much nighttime restlessness or worry comes from unresolved feelings about relationships, these meditations can bring fresh peace, easing both the mind and the body into better sleep. It's also worth talking about self-compassion and the quiet but steady way it challenges old, negative self-talk. Many people have an inner critic that springs to life as soon as they turn out the lights, criticizing the day, bringing up old regrets, planning for every possible failure. Compassion meditation, especially with repetition, meditation gently teaches the mind to turn down this harshness. Phrases like, "May I be happy," or "May I understand and forgive myself," although simple, start to become alternatives to automatic criticism. In practice, people often find that their inner voice grows less sharp, and when setbacks come, it feels more natural to respond with understanding than with blame. Buddhist teachers often remind students that compassion does not mean ignoring problems or pretending that everything is perfect. Instead, it's about facing the reality of the present moment with a spirit that is helpful, patient, and non-punishing. When you bring this attitude to physical or emotional wounds, your body gets permission to let go, even if just for a few hours, of the tension that keeps everything stuck. Over time, this can mean sleeping better, feeling less pain, dealing with chronic conditions with more hope, and having energy to tackle real changes when you're ready. From a practical point of view, using compassion meditation with sleep listening is straightforward. You find an audio track that matches your taste and needs, set a timer or let it play throughout the night, and allow yourself to tune in as deeply as you wish. On some nights you'll feel the effects more strongly than others, and that's normal. What matters is the steady, repeated exposure to kinder thoughts and feelings. Just like learning to ride a bike, your mind and body remember what's been practiced and changes start to show up even outside formal practice times. Let's talk about results that people report when they stick with these routines. Beyond better sleep, common benefits include feeling lighter during the day, more tolerant of stress, and more inclined to reach out to others instead of withdrawing. Some notice they don't get as sick as often, or physical pain becomes less dominating, even if it doesn't disappear. Others say the biggest difference is emotional. They bounce back faster from disappointments, or just feel less stuck inside their own head. The shift can be gradual, but over weeks or months it builds resilience that is visible both inside and out. For people who feel skeptical about whether just thinking kind thoughts really does anything, the science offers reassurance. Functional MRI studies, which look at which parts of the brain are active, have shown that compassion meditation lights up areas related to positivity, safety, and connection. At the same time, blood work done before and after compassion training shows lower markers of stress, lower inflammation, and in some cases better blood sugar and cholesterol levels. Even if you come at this practice from a strictly practical, non-spiritual angle, the effects are measurable in the body, not just theoretical. A good thing about compassion meditation is that it doesn't require you to believe in anything out of the ordinary, nor do you need past experience with meditation or Buddhism. Anyone can try it. Some people customize their practice by focusing on specific physical struggles. May I heal? May my legs feel strong? While others keep it broad. Sleep listening tracks are available in dozens of styles, from soft-spoken narrators to chanting or music-driven meditations. It's more about finding what lets your defenses drop than about reciting a perfect script. Compassion meditation also fits easily alongside existing health routines or medical treatment. If you're already taking medication or working with a doctor, adding 10 or 20 minutes a night of these practices won't interfere. It may, in fact, help you handle side effects, improve your body's response to medicine, or just make rest more restorative. In hospitals in parts of Asia, doctors teach these techniques as soon as patients are admitted, since those who use them tend to recover faster and with fewer complications. Kids and teens benefit as much as adults, sometimes even more. Young people dealing with test anxiety, social challenges, or health problems often feel powerless and alone. Compassion meditation, guided in age-appropriate language, lets them build a habit of speaking to themselves in a way that brings comfort instead of criticism. Schools that have integrated simple versions of these meditations into their schedule have seen drops in bullying, better concentration, and happier students overall. Let's look at how all this fits into daily life. Maybe you can imagine a scenario where you're lying in bed, uneasy about the day ahead, or frustrated at how slow your healing is going. The old habit might be to mentally beat yourself up, rehearse worst-case scenarios, or just hope sleep comes quickly. Introducing compassion meditation, especially as part of a sleep listening routine, gives your mind a new pattern to follow. You can start by saying, "I wish myself ease," or "I honor what my body is facing right now." It may feel awkward at first, but after a few days, the tone of your inner dialogue can begin to soften. The goal isn't to repress worried thoughts, but to let them coexist with kindness, gradually reducing their power. In families or relationships, compassion-based sleep listening can also shift the mood. If one person in a home practices, the calmness and patience they gain can influence everyone else. Some couples or groups use the same track together, others just notice that anxiety, irritability, and impatience at home drop as one person becomes more stable. Because these changes come from genuine physiological shifts in the brain and body, they tend to last, reinforcing the good effects over time. To sum up the practical side, here's what makes compassion meditation such a powerful boost for healing. It directly lowers stress chemistry, giving your gut, heart, and immune system a break. It increases positive hormones like those related to trust and connection, which support repair and healthy sleep. It changes mental habits from harshness to understanding, reducing self-sabotage and destructive criticism. And because it works bit by bit every night, especially when paired with sleep listening, the results build over time, without the need for huge effort or dramatic rituals. One last point worth noting is that compassion is a resource you can generate on your own, even if nobody else is offering it. For people recovering from grief, trauma, or tough illness, that's a game changer. It means you're not completely dependent on outside validation for comfort or calm. By practicing compassion meditation consistently, you can rebuild a sense of belonging and support within yourself, no matter what's happening externally. So whether you come at this practice as someone with a lot of health issues, as a caretaker, a parent, or simply a person living through daily ups and downs, compassion meditation offers a deeply practical, science-backed way to make your inner and outer life better. Over time, and especially as a natural part of your sleep routine, it creates a foundation where true healing, physically, emotionally, and mentally, has the best possible chance to take root. When combined with everything else you do for your health, it really does become a simple, steady way to tip the odds in your favor, allowing your body and mind to rest, repair, and recover night after night. Adding compassion meditation to your nightly routine is powerful on its own, but if you look at Buddhist-inspired healing as a system, there's another very practical technique that plays a big part, using affirmations and healing mantras during sleep. This might sound a bit different from the practices we've talked about so far, but in daily life, it's actually one of the most direct ways people influence their minds and even support physical recovery. What's interesting here is how repetition, especially when it's paired with sound, affects the brain and even behavior in ways that are often really hard to achieve by simple positive thinking during the day. Buddhist traditions have used chanting and mantra repetition for centuries. These are not just random words or phrases, but carefully chosen sequences that are believed to carry healing effects not only through meaning, but also through vibration and sound. In a temple or monastery, you might hear groups of people repeating mantras hundreds or thousands of times, usually gently and with a rhythm that becomes almost musical. Some of these mantras are centuries old, passed down from teacher to student. The idea isn't that repeating words will magically change reality, but that over time, those repeated sounds steadily shift the mental and emotional atmosphere. On the simplest level, mantra chanting quiets the mind, especially the noisy, self-critical parts that can ramp up to full volume when we try to rest. When these practices move into a sleep routine, they transform a typical night into an opportunity for another kind of healing. Sleep is already when the body recovers and the mind processes stress from the day. Adding affirmations or mantras makes this process more intentional. You're not just waiting for rest to do its work. You're helping guide your subconscious to let go of fear, accept comfort, and remember your own inner strength. That's why you'll find so many audio tracks, sleep playlists, or even smartphone apps built around gentle affirmations or soft mantra chanting. Let's get practical about how affirmation and mantra sleep listening actually work. As you settle into bed, you might play a track with simple, slow phrases. These can be classic Buddhist mantras or modern affirmations like "I am safe," "My body is healing," or "I am whole." The trick is choosing language that feels genuine to you, but is also broad enough that the subconscious mind can grab onto it. While you sleep, your mind's usual critical filters are relaxed. Words and sounds settle in much deeper, unlike the daytime, when you might resist new ideas with thoughts like, "That's not true for me," or "I don't believe that." Your brain at night is more like a sponge. It absorbs repeated ideas much more easily, especially with soothing tone and music. Neuroscience gives us some clear support for this effect. Researchers call it sleep-based learning or sleep-based conditioning, and it's now well established that the brain does not completely shut down at night. Auditory input, the sounds you hear is still processed by certain parts of the brain, though not in full detail. This is especially true for repetitive patterns and positive emotions in the message. Over many cycles, new associations are formed. If affirmation tracks calmly reinforce messages of safety or worthiness, these become the background music of your emotional system. After several weeks, it's not unusual to see people feeling more rested, more optimistic, or less drawn to negative self-talk and worry. There's some unique value in using sleep for this kind of training. During the day, you're always busy, your mind splits attention, you have a phone in your hand, you're bombarded with images and messages, and self-judgment can sneak in at any moment. But at night, when you're drifting off or already sleeping, your inner critic is quiet. That's the window where affirmations and mantras can really take root without much interference. They are absorbed, not analysed or argued with, and that's why the results tend to feel more natural and less forced than just repeating positive statements to yourself in the mirror during the day. One benefit that a lot of people notice is a natural drop in negative self-talk. These are the little thought patterns that whisper, "I won't get better," "this is too hard," or "I don't deserve to heal." With nightly repetition, affirmative statements start to crowd out those old, familiar doubts. It's not an instant fix, but after a month or two, many people say they wake up feeling differently about themselves, facing challenges with more steadiness, or just having more energy to take care of what actually needs action, instead of getting bogged down by doubts before the day begins. Let's talk a little about the actual mantras and how they're chosen. In the Buddhist tradition, some of the most used mantras are in ancient languages like Pali, Sanskrit, or Tibetan. The idea is that the sound itself carries resonance. The music of the mantra supports calm, courage, or letting go. Modern approaches adapt these mantras or use simple words in the native language of the person listening. For healing, phrases might include, "May I be free from pain," "Let balance return to my body," or "May I know peace." Sleep tracks often use a very slow speaking style with plenty of space between lines and gentle backing music. This presentation helps relax and slow the brainwaves, nudging your system closer to deep, restorative sleep stages, where physical and emotional repair are strongest. Mantra and affirmation listening can also be combined with the rhythm of the breath. Some tracks cue you to breathe in with "I am safe" and breathe out with "I am calm," for example. This synchronizes sound, language, and physiology, making your whole system more receptive to comfort and letting go. Even if you don't consciously remember every word in the morning, your body and mind respond with less tension and a slightly brighter mood over time. It's completely normal to feel a little skeptical at first, especially if you're not used to talking kindly to yourself or trying out spiritual practices. There's no need to force a certain feeling or pretend to believe every word. The benefit is in the gentle persistence, listening and allowing, letting the words float past night after night until they start to feel like a normal part of your mental background. A lot of people start with just 5 or 10 minutes before sleep and let the sessions get longer as it feels natural. Some practical tips can make the whole process smoother. Make sure your audio track is set to a comfortable volume, not too loud, but clear enough to be soothing. If you share a room, headphones designed for sleep, like those soft headbands, can help. Try to turn off or silence all other notifications, alarms, or distractions so that your affirmation session has its own sacred time in the night. You don't have to stay completely alert. The recordings are meant to work even if you drift off midway. Over time, your unconscious will pick up more and more of the tone and message, even if you don't remember specific phrases each morning. Mantra practice also allows you to personalize your healing. If you have a particular area of struggle, maybe physical pain, anxiety before bed, or feelings of loneliness, you can pick or write affirmations that address that specifically. Over several weeks, the repeated nightly reinforcement helps your brain code those issues as less urgent or threatening. Sometimes people notice their physical pain eases a little. At other times, the main effect is more emotional stamina or clarity. This is all evidence that the body and mind are taking new cues, shifting old habits for fresher, healthier reactions. The long-term benefits of this practice are significant. When affirmation and mantra listening becomes a routine, you might see sleep quality improve, waking less often, falling asleep faster, or even having fewer stressful dreams. You might notice your mood changing, with a bit more hope during the day, and less of that fight or flight feeling at minor setbacks. There's even data from both Buddhist communities and Western researchers showing that regular mantra practice lowers markers of chronic stress in blood tests, stabilizes blood pressure, and improves immune function. You might wonder about the best affirmations to use. There's no strict rule, but honesty counts. Phrases should not feel fake or so grandiose that your mind rejects them. I am becoming more peaceful, or my body is learning to heal, is much easier to accept than everything is perfect now, if you know that's not true for you. Start small, listen frequently, and allow the mantras to change as your needs change. Some people even record their own voices, repeating what they most need to hear, and listen back. This adds a layer of comfort simply by hearing familiar tones. And for those drawn to more traditional Buddhist mantras, there's a huge variety. Phrases like Om Mani Padme Hum, Gate Gate Paragate Parasamgate Bodhisvaha, or the classic Namo Amituofo, common in Chinese Buddhism, are chosen for their history of being recited for centuries with healing intent. Recordings for sleep usually slow down these chants, pair them with music, and encourage the listener to relax into the rhythm. Even if you don't understand every word, the atmosphere of care, repetition, and trust begins to rewire old stress reactions into newer, gentler ones. The impact of repeated mantra and affirmation listening is not only mental or emotional, it physically influences how your body functions. Stress responses, like the release of adrenaline and cortisol, gradually shift downward. Muscles settle, digestion improves, and energy patterns stabilize. This sets the stage for better rest and a stronger baseline for healing, not a one-off miracle, but a steady, real improvement you can sense over time. Families sometimes use mantra sessions together, or parents play gentle affirmations for their children at bedtime. Even pets seem to relax in a home where this kind of nightly calming is practiced. For people dealing with very tough circumstances, grief, serious illness, or recovery from trauma, silent repetition of favorite affirmations with or without audio support can make the difference between a night spent in worry and one that brings true relief. In between all these benefits, there's also a deeper sense of agency, knowing you have something to do in the face of frustration, pain, or fear. Instead of feeling helpless or at the mercy of outside events, affirmation practice lets you re-anchor your mind and body in hope, one night at a time. It does not mean you ignore practical concerns or skip medical care. Rather, you build an internal team that supports you, a kind of unspoken partnership between your intentions and your biology. On a scientific level, the results may seem subtle at first. You probably won't wake up with every problem solved or instantly at peace. What you might notice instead are little differences. The urge to criticize yourself softening, a quicker return to calm when upset, or simply trusting your body a bit more each week. Sleep researchers now encourage similar routines even in clinical settings because they see how calm, nighttime routines support recovery from all kinds of conditions, chronic pain, anxiety, and even blood pressure issues. Over the long run, this habit can become the foundation for other healthy changes. Once you trust that your sleep environment is supportive and safe, you may find yourself trying new things, maybe a different diet, more exercise, or asking for help sooner. Healing mantras and affirmations won't do all the work alone, but they set the stage by undermining the "I can't" habits that keep people stuck. Their real power is quiet and cumulative, a little bit every night, until the texture of life shifts toward greater ease. If you're looking to try this, remember that the variety is huge. You can go traditional, with Buddhist chants and ancient sounds, or modern, with recorded voices offering specific messages for health, rest, comfort, or resilience. You can choose long tracks that play for an hour, or very short ones, whatever fits your situation. If one track isn't appealing, try another until you find a pattern that feels natural. The key is repetition, comfort, and allowing yourself to let go of doing it perfectly. Affirmation and mantra listening is not about convincing yourself to ignore pain or pretend you're never afraid. Instead, it's a steady way of nourishing the parts of the mind and body that need encouragement, especially when you're tired or vulnerable. Over time, your thoughts get less tangled with old worries and stories, and more oriented toward what is possible: rest, stability, and self-support. What's encouraging is that you don't have to make this the center of your life, or commit to a long spiritual journey for the benefits to show up. 15 or 20 minutes a night, or even scattered through the week, is enough to gradually carve new, healthier pathways in the brain. You'll know it's working not by huge overnight changes, but by a gentle lightness. A sense that, even during tough days, something inside you is rooting for your well-being. The long history of Buddhist mantra, the new science around affirmation, sleep listening, and thousands of personal reports all point to the same gentle truth. You can guide your mind and body back to healing, one night, one phrase, and one breath at a time. As you start to get into the groove of using mantras and affirmations while you sleep, you might notice some unexpected bumps along the way. Most people think that with enough repetition and care, a healing journey just continues smoothly, but that's rarely how things play out. If anything, one of the biggest challenges is actually what gets in the way: fear, anxiety, and this uneasy sense of being disconnected from our own experience. It's not always obvious at first. These barriers often lurk under the surface, shaping reactions, fueling stress at odd times, and even making new habits harder to stick with than you'd expect. Sometimes it seems like, no matter how many positive routines you pick up, old worries, self-doubt, or emotional blocks just keep coming back. That experience is not unusual, and if anything, it's a clear signal that something deeper needs kindness and a real look, not more force or discipline. People often ask why fear and anxiety feel so powerful when you're trying to heal or just find a sense of calm. The answer isn't simple, but a lot of it comes down to how these emotions are wired into the body. Fear is usually trying to protect us from pain, loss, or making a mistake, but instead of keeping us safe, it tends to keep us stuck. Anxiety becomes this background noise, a sort of out-of-tune radio in your chest or stomach that won't turn off even when things are going all right on the outside. For many, it's not just mental, it shows up physically: tight muscles, shallow breathing, maybe even headaches or trouble sleeping. Then there's the issue of disconnection, and this one can be subtle. It's the feeling of being somewhat removed from your own thoughts, emotions, or what's happening in your body. Maybe you go through your day on autopilot, or you blank out when you try to sense what you really feel, or the body's signals, like pain or exhaustion, just start to feel far away. This checked-out state is especially common if you've dealt with stress for a long time. It's a kind of self-protection that worked at some point, but it puts healing on hold because when you're not present, it's hard to tap into the mind-body cooperation needed for actual change. Buddhism talks a lot about these barriers, not just as personal failings or bad habits, but as natural reactions to suffering. It's a realistic view. Life brings tough moments, and everyone finds ways to cope, sometimes by ignoring, avoiding, or compartmentalizing their experience. The trick is recognizing that what once helped you might not help anymore. That's where the healing journey flips from more effort to more awareness. You have to see the patterns before you can soften them, and that takes a bit of honesty, and sometimes some trial and error. Sleep listening and Buddhist-inspired techniques aren't about bulldozing over these blocks or thinking your way out of them. Instead, the practices are set up to shine a gentle light into the quiet places where fear and anxiety hide. Audio tracks for sleep, for example, will often have the guide say things like, "Notice any fear or tightness, but don't rush to fix it, just let it be present." That sounds simple, but for most people it's completely new. The old default is to try to eliminate fear with logic or ignore anxiety by distraction. The Buddhist approach leans toward curiosity. What's here beneath the familiar tension? Is it sadness, anger, or a genuine sense of loss? Letting yourself listen rather than fight opens the door for those emotions to soften. Another important angle is how the body processes these feelings. Fear and anxiety cause very real, very measurable changes in the physical system. The heart pumps faster, stress hormones go up, digestion slows down, all signals that the danger alarm is going off, even if the threat is just a thought. Sleep listening helps break this cycle by coaching the body and mind to recognize it's safe now, especially as you drift into sleep. Over weeks, if you give yourself gentle permission to notice and even welcome some of these uncomfortable feelings, their grip starts to loosen. You might notice fewer panic spikes, calmer mornings, or less tension at bedtime. Disconnection shifts a bit differently. The practice here is to simply reclaim presence bit by bit through small check-ins. Sleep listening can begin with a simple body scan. Feel your back on the mattress, notice your right foot, sense any warmth or coolness. This brings you back gently to where you actually are. Even if your mind wanders, every time you return to the body, you're rebuilding the bridge. Over time, that awareness during sleep listening starts to bleed through into the daytime. You react to stress faster, notice tension sooner, and can head off big meltdowns before they get rolling. The critical thing with fear and anxiety is to shift your stance from enemy to messenger. Buddhism teaches that these emotions are just trying to tell you something. Maybe you need rest. Maybe you're worried about something real. Maybe some part of you is still processing old pain. If you start treating fear and anxiety as signals and not threats, you waste less energy fighting yourself and free up more energy for healing. The result? The mind gradually stops sending urgent messages when it's not necessary, and the nervous system can settle into a steadier, more healing rhythm. Actual healing happens most efficiently in that state of calm, not when you're ramped up. Research backs this up too. Studies on meditation and sleep relaxation prove that guiding your attention, even for a few minutes a night, to breathing, sensation, or calming phrases drops adrenaline, balances out nervous system activity, and boosts healing hormones like melatonin or endorphins. You may not notice an immediate snap as fear dissolves, but nights get quieter and days get steadier. Over months, the difference is clearer, less frequent flare-ups of panic or exhaustion, and surprisingly fewer illnesses or injuries taking hold. There's also the question of resistance. Why do certain practices just feel too hard or weird to try, even if you want to heal? That resistance is usually another face of fear. Maybe there's a worry that relaxing means letting your guard down, or an old belief that you don't really deserve calm or recovery. Rather than attacking those thoughts, a Buddhist approach would be to acknowledge them. Okay, I see you, doubt or shame, but I'll try something new for a few minutes anyway. Every night you do this, you teach your mind and body that safety is possible now, even if it felt impossible before. Sometimes, though, these deeper barriers stick around, especially if they're tied to old traumas or long-term stress. In those cases, sleep listening can be a gentle support alongside other resources like therapy or community. The great thing about Buddhist and sleep-based techniques is there's no pressure to perform. You show up and listen, follow your breath, let the practice unfold. Even on nights when fear or emotional pain are strong, turning toward them with acknowledgement rather than avoidance creates momentum toward genuine healing. With consistency, the tough nights become fewer and easy nights return more often. People also get confused about what release actually looks like. It's not always a big emotional outburst or an instant feeling of peace. More often, it's noticing you're less hooked by the same stories. Maybe you catch yourself halfway through a panic spiral and take one slow breath. Or you realize a tension headache that would have lasted all day now fades in an hour. Or most simply, you fall asleep more easily even when you're worried. These are quiet but important milestones. The gradual reduction in overthinking and the softer, more flexible way of meeting discomfort are the true signals that old patterns are letting go. Connection to self, to others, to experience is another crucial factor that gets stronger as fear and anxiety slide back. Buddhism always comes back to the idea that we're not meant to heal in isolation. What people often find is that as fear and anxiety lessen, it suddenly becomes easier to reach out for help, accept comfort, or even share their own experience with others. This reconnects the inner world with the outer world, and healing starts to speed up. You don't have to fix every relationship or be perfectly social, but even feeling a bit less isolated is enough to boost mood and immune function in real, measurable ways. Another thing that happens is the story about illness or struggle begins to shift. Fear-driven narratives. I'll never get better, I'm different from everyone else, no one understands, become less believable when you engage in regular healing routines. Instead, practical confidence grows. You remember that sleep listening, breathing, or body scans are always available, no matter what comes up tomorrow. Even when setbacks happen, they're less overwhelming because you're not tangled in a web of catastrophic thinking. This new story is built on evidence, not wishful thinking. Each night you meet your experience honestly. It's one more vote for strength, adaptability, and trust in your own process. Let's get practical here. Building a sleep listening routine to help with fear, anxiety, and reconnection doesn't have to be complicated. Start with a few nights a week, picking audio that feels safe, maybe gentle voices, supportive affirmations, or calming nature sounds. If your mind races anyway, keep the practice short to begin with. Over time, lengthen it as attention grows. Touch base with your body at the start and end. How does my chest feel tonight? Is my stomach tight or soft? Track these little data points and you'll see progress, not always in a straight line, but with clear improvements over a month or two. Some nights will bring up more resistance or discomfort, and that's normal. You're not failing, you're meeting real old patterns that just need more kindness. If it feels too much, back off for a night, listen without engaging, or switch to a simple breath-counting session. The point is to develop familiarity, not mastery right away. Healing is about frequency, not intensity. The number of nights you gently return attention to safety and body awareness matters more than having one perfect session every so often. There's also value in sharing what you learn. Many people are surprised to discover how common fear, anxiety, and disconnect are. Once these are named, the shame that keeps them in place starts to dissolve. Finding a friend, support group, or even an online forum that shares an interest in Buddhist-inspired healing can take isolation and transform it into encouragement. Witnessing others' setbacks and progress builds realistic expectations and helps keep you consistent when motivation wavers. If you're mixing sleep listening with other healing efforts, keep expectations open. Sometimes, sleep gets more restless at first as your body works through deeper layers. Other times, change comes in bursts. One week is calm, the next is rocky. Instead of judging the bad nights, look at them as signs of movement, not setbacks. Every round of facing discomfort with awareness is another step toward breaking old cycles. Over months, people find their set point for fear and stress lowers, and they can recall feeling relaxed even in challenging situations, a huge transformation. Above all, overcoming barriers is less about defeating them and more about building a relationship with your own mind and body. Treating fear, anxiety, and disconnection as ordinary guests, sometimes annoying but not dangerous, reduces the alarm bells. You start to trust that they'll rise and fall, just like thoughts or sensations, and you gain the freedom to choose your next action rather than reacting automatically. In the process, you lay down new wiring in your mind and body. Night after night, each act of gentle observation, each guided phrase, and each drop of resistance rewires the system toward stability and trust. It's this pattern, more than any single insight or technique, that helps people move out of stuckness and into healing. Your mind and body get the message that it's okay to rest, to be present, and, when needed, to reach out. This is the foundation for not just better sleep, but deeper transformation in how you relate to stress, pain, and the larger process of getting well. Step by step, less fear, more connection, and a genuine belief that real healing is something you can influence, not just wait for. Once those barriers start to let up, there's a real shift in what you can do with your mind and how your body responds. At that point, two things become especially important if you want to go further with healing: setting intention and using visualization. These are not side details in Buddhist practice. They're right at the center of what makes change sustainable and real. For anyone curious about what actually makes a difference, seeing how intention and visualization work day to day is a game changer. Intention is basically a choice, but it's much deeper than wanting something or hoping for it. It's the kind of clear, focused direction that you set for yourself, even if your mind wanders or things get messy. In Buddhist-inspired healing, intention is the starting point. If you get into bed without a real sense of what you want to encourage or release, your brain just keeps looping through default programs. But when you pause and actually set an intention, you tell your mind and body, "This is the direction I'm choosing for tonight." It's like steering your experience, even if you can't control every single thing that happens. What's useful is that intention works best when it's simple and honest, not forced or grandiose. For example, you might quietly say to yourself, "Tonight I want to support my healing," or "I intend to let go of the tension I've been carrying." These statements are less about demanding instant results and more about guiding your focus away from worry and toward a sense of purpose. When you name your intention as part of a sleep routine, especially before starting a listening practice, your subconscious is more ready to accept the messages in the guided audio, mantras, or meditations that follow. Buddhist teachers and mindfulness researchers agree the brain looks for direction, especially when winding down for sleep. The classic mistake is to slip into bed while replaying stress or confusion from the day. If your last conscious thought is, "I hope I sleep," or "What if I feel terrible again tomorrow?" that's the message that seeps in. Intention interrupts that default, offering a route your subconscious can follow instead. Even just taking 3 or 4 slow breaths and stating your intention out loud or silently can change your body's chemistry by lowering adrenaline and setting a new emotional tone as you drift off. Visualization adds another layer. It's not just imagination or fantasy. It's a specific technique for speaking to your subconscious in the language it really understands: images, sensory details, and emotional tone. In Buddhist healing, visualization can be incredibly practical. Someone with aches might picture warmth or light moving into sore spots, Someone working through anxiety might imagine their breath as a safe breeze clearing clouds of tension away. Instead of seeing healing as a distant or mysterious event, visualization brings it closer, giving your body and nervous system a blueprint for what you're aiming for. Sleep listening and visualization go together perfectly because during those light stages of sleep, the boundary between conscious and subconscious is thinner. Your mind is a little more impressionable, less critical, and more open to what's offered. Guided tracks for visualization are popular for exactly this reason. They often talk you through scenes where you notice your body softening, your breath moving with ease, or even parts of the body repairing themselves. It's not about convincing yourself of something fake. It's about priming your system to notice what's possible instead of defaulting to anxiety or pain. Research supports this approach in a big way. Experiments have shown that when people imagine muscles working or being massaged, their bodies actually show micro-activation in those muscles. If patients recovering from injury or surgery are taught to visualize their tissues repairing, swelling going down, or balance returning, healing can genuinely speed up. Positive imagery has been linked to faster immune response, less pain, and lower markers of stress in the blood. This isn't magic. It's about how the nervous system practices whatever you repeat, and sooner or later, the body's routines follow the mental habit. The power of intention and visualization comes forward even more when someone faces ongoing health struggles. Many people in chronic pain or recovery find themselves trapped by images of struggle, hopelessness, or a sense that nothing can change. Breaking that loop is hard, but intention and visualization offer something to practice each night, besides just hoping things might be different. If you imagine, however simply, a sense of peace, ease, or even cells repairing as you sleep, your body might not fix everything overnight, but it will spend less time cycling through alarm and more time in the mode most likely to help. A lot of guided sleep listening now includes explicit invitations to set intention and visualize healing. These sessions often start with a prompt. Take a moment to choose what you want for your rest tonight. Maybe it is comfort, release, or a sense of being cared for. The audio might then guide you to picture a safe place, golden light filling the body, or even your breath moving through tight or painful areas gently and kindly. The aim isn't perfection of visual clarity, but the emotional tone. If your mind can feel safe, supported, or hopeful, your body responds. It's actually really common for people to say things like, "I'm not good at visualizing," or "I can't see images in my mind." That's not a problem. Visualization isn't about seeing pictures like a movie. It works just as well if you simply get a sense, a feeling, or even use words mentally. For example, you might repeat, "My knee feels warm and relaxed," or "Each breath brings more ease to my heart." What you're doing is feeding your subconscious small, digestible cues of improvement. Even if nothing changes right away, you've given your mind and body new material to work with, instead of the same old cycle of fear or frustration. Another thing about intention and visualization is that they can be uniquely personal and flexible. One person's healing picture might look totally different from another's. You can visualize energy, light, water, stillness, even a favorite memory. Whatever helps evoke a sense of safety and renewal for you. As weeks go by, these inner scenes often become stronger, more comforting, and easier to call up. Before you know it, you might reach for intention and visualization out of habit whenever discomfort hits, not just at night. That's how these techniques make healing more accessible, not by solving everything, but by putting you back in the driver's seat. The scientific side has started to catch up with what Buddhist practitioners noticed for centuries. Health psychology has a whole branch dedicated to guided imagery, and it's used in mainstream hospitals for patients undergoing surgery or cancer treatment. Studies show that when patients are taught to picture positive outcomes, like calm immune cells, softening scars, or healthy movement, pain levels drop, sleep comes faster, and emotional resilience rises. Even elite athletes and musicians train with visualization to prep their bodies and minds for high-pressure moments, because rehearsal in the mind signals the brain to practice success, not just repeat mistakes. Setting intention and practicing visualization doesn't require special equipment or a complicated routine. It might take less than 5 minutes. Before starting a sleep track, put your hand on your chest or stomach and state, "Tonight, I intend to relax and receive whatever rest is here." If you have a particular area you want to heal, maybe a sore shoulder or anxious heart, focus your mind there for just a moment, imagining warmth, ease, or breath. As the audio plays, let these cues work in the background. Over time, the body starts to pair healing with these cues, making both rest and recovery a little smoother. Another practical technique is future pacing, imagining not just rest tonight, but how you'll feel tomorrow if your intention is met. You might picture waking up with a clearer head, more comfort in your joints, or simply a calm start to the day. This is not wishful thinking. It gently builds confidence in your ability to move forward, even if change is slow. People managing chronic illness or starting difficult recoveries have found that using these visualizations not only makes sleep more restorative, but makes setbacks less threatening and everyday improvements easier to celebrate. If you worry about doing it right, remember, the best intention is specific to you, not copied from someone else's script. What matters is believing that your effort counts, even if the change is subtle. Some nights, intention and visualization will feel easy. Other nights, your mind might resist. That's normal. Simply coming back to the practice, without expectation or self-blame, slowly rewires your habits. Soon, your mind and body will start to expect comfort and improvement, sometimes even before you get into bed. What's also encouraging is that intention and visualization, like most Buddhist healing methods, can be shared or done alone. Partners or families sometimes set a shared intention for restful sleep or for each other's well-being before playing an audio track. In group settings, healing visualizations are used to support hospital patients, athletes, or even in classrooms for stress management. Whether done solo or in a group, the act of setting a focus and visualizing it in detail brings everyone closer to a stronger baseline for health and happiness. Even if you don't believe in the power of imagery or have doubts about your ability to keep it up, the science suggests these effects are not all or nothing. Any movement away from automatic stress, fear, or shame is a win. Every honest intention, every gentle attempt to imagine something better, trains your nervous system to be less reactive and more supportive. In the long run, these skills can be used anywhere, not just in bed. You can set intentions before medical appointments, important talks, or challenging days. You can visualize calm or relief as a coping tool in real time. For children, people recovering from trauma, or anyone feeling especially vulnerable, intention and visualization offer an accessible entry point into healing. No prior knowledge needed. It's enough to think, "I want rest," or "I want to feel cared for tonight," and let that be your guide. Teachers and therapists are introducing these skills in schools and clinics, finding that students and clients who use them have fewer panic episodes, spend less time lost in worrying, and recover more quickly from sickness or setbacks. The relationship between intention and the body goes deeper the longer you stick with it. Sleep scientists have found that people who form a clear sleep goal before bed do actually fall asleep faster and wake with a stronger sense of hope and energy. Hospitals use audio recordings with guided visualizations to speed recovery after operations. People facing autoimmune challenges who visualize a calm, balanced immune system tend to have fewer flare-ups. These results are not promises of cure, but they show how much the mind's quiet guidance shapes the body's daily reality. If you add intention and visualization to your Buddhist-inspired sleep listening, give yourself a trial period, say 4 weeks or close to a month. Track how you feel before sleep and after waking, and jot down any changes in mood, pain, or general resilience. Notice if your old default stress patterns show up less often, if you fall asleep sooner, or if you handle obstacles with fewer worries. Often the most convincing proof comes quietly, in bits, a moment of comfort you didn't expect, a day that unfolds with more steadiness, or a recovery that doesn't take as long as usual. At the end of the day, intention and visualization give you traction. You're not just floating on hope, you're working actively with your own healing, even when things feel out of your hands. These tools reinforce all your other efforts, from affirmations to compassion meditation to sleep hygiene. They turn sleep into a nightly rehearsal for better health, making your rest hours twice as valuable. And that sense of direction and possibility is what keeps healing moving, especially when things get tough. By bringing clear intention and practical imagery into your nightly routine, you set up a much more supportive environment for your mind and body to unwind, recover, and wake up stronger. The best part is that you're in charge the whole time, no fancy gadgets or expert knowledge needed. Just a willingness to guide your own process, gently and honestly, one night at a time. Like so much in Buddhist healing, the goal is not perfection but progress. One clear intention, one safe image, and one truly restful night after another. Something that surprises a lot of people once they start putting intention and visualization to work in their nightly routine is the amount of real, measurable support these kinds of Buddhist-inspired sleep listening practices are getting from the scientific world. For a long time, things like meditation, chanting, and affirmation-based rituals were seen as a bit flaky or purely spiritual. It was common to hear that these practices might help you feel better, but they couldn't possibly actually change your health in ways that show up in medical studies or hospital charts. Now it's become very clear that is just not the case anymore. There's a growing pile of research suggesting these approaches aren't only helpful for mental balance, but also provide specific benefits for body systems like immunity, inflammation, sleep quality, and even pain management. Over the past 2 decades, you'll notice the number of published research studies on meditation, mindfulness, and related sleep practices has exploded. Scientists use tools that measure everything from blood pressure and immune markers to changes in sleep waves on brain scans, and even mood changes using standard clinical tests. One famous example is studies measuring the effects of Buddhist-style mindfulness meditation on people dealing with chronic pain or anxiety. Groups that practice these techniques, especially with guided audio or mantra-based protocols, reported less pain and lower stress, even after a few weeks. Their blood samples showed lower levels of inflammatory chemicals like C-reactive protein, and their heart rates were more stable at night. There's also fascinating evidence that listening to calming or intentional audio guidance while drifting into sleep, what's sometimes called sleep listening, actually shapes what your brain is doing while you sleep. Several experiments have placed people in sleep labs, hooked them up to EEGs that track brain activity, and played gentle scripts or repeated affirmations designed to evoke safety, calm, and healing. Not only did people fall asleep faster, but their deep sleep, the stage where body repair happens, got longer. That means more immune system activity, more hormone balancing, and better memory processing while you sleep. Some participants said they woke up with better mood and less muscle tension too. Researchers have also examined mantra practices, a big part of Buddhist healing, brain imaging and blood work before and after participants listen to or chant classic Buddhist mantras show a notable drop in stress hormones like cortisol and norepinephrine. These biochemical changes line up with fMRI results, the parts of the brain associated with fear and fight or flight, like the amygdala, quiet down, while areas connected to calm and positive emotion like the prefrontal cortex light up. Even just 10 or 15 minutes a night seems to be enough to start shifting these patterns when measured over a few weeks. When you look at hospitals, especially in parts of Asia like Japan, Thailand, or even growing numbers in the West, Buddhist-inspired meditative listening is being used directly with patients. Nurses help patients play guided compassion meditations or safe mantra tracks before surgery or as part of chronic illness treatment. The results show real changes, not just a feeling of being more peaceful. Healing times go down, patient satisfaction rates go up, and even tough symptoms like insomnia or post-surgery pain become more manageable. Let's talk about stress for a second, since this is something modern life throws at almost everyone. Clinical trials have found that participants practicing regular mindfulness and compassion routines before sleep, which almost always include guidance borrowed or inspired by Buddhist tradition, show a definite drop in anxiety levels and perceived stress. Their bodies also show it, with reduced nighttime spikes in heart rate and fewer stress-related blood markers. These studies aren't just about feeling calm moment to moment. The positive effects last weeks or months after people start this kind of practice. More specifically, there's good evidence now that sleep listening helps people with sleep disorders as well. Insomnia is notoriously hard to treat with medication alone. Over the past decade, sleep centers in Europe, North America, and Australia began testing guided meditation and affirmation tracks for people who couldn't fall or stay asleep. Not only did the majority report faster sleep onset and fewer nighttime wakings, but the benefits seemed to last even when people had to stop or skip a night. The training actually strengthened the mind's association between bedtime, safety, and calm, making falling asleep less like a battle and more of a natural return to balance. It's not just adults who see these benefits. School studies in South Korea, India, and the United States have brought simple Buddhist-inspired sleep meditations into classrooms and youth clinics, especially for stressed adolescents. After as little as 1 month, students showed lower average heart rates, improved mood scores, and reported feeling less overwhelmed by tests or social situations. Kids with chronic medical issues also had better attendance and fewer complaints of pain and fatigue. Similar trials with older adults, including those dealing with long-term illness or end-of-life care, have shown sleep listening helps boost a sense of dignity, ease loneliness, and decrease the need for strong painkillers. You might wonder how affirmation-based audio or chanting actually creates these changes. It's not simply distraction or wishful thinking. A lot of the benefit comes from how the brain integrates positive, repetitive statements during sleep or during relaxed listening. Over time, these affirmations crowd out negative or worrying narratives, building a new soundtrack in the subconscious that supports resilience. Sleep studies using EEG have even shown the brain replays calming affirmations heard during the night, with a distinct impact on dream content and the quality of rest. Participants report fewer nightmares, more frequent dreams about comfort or safety, and even improved attitude toward physical symptoms the next day. One more place the research gets really interesting is pain. In pain clinics from Germany to California, Buddhist-style mindfulness and compassion meditations, often the same as those used for sleep listening, cut down on reports of pain flare-ups, especially for people with arthritis, fibromyalgia, or long-standing injuries. On a physical level, this reduction is connected to a decrease in inflammatory cytokines, tiny proteins that signal pain and swelling in the body. Blood tests show these markers go down over weeks or months when people stick to a steady routine of guided meditation at bedtime. People taking fewer opioid medications or sleep aids is a meaningful sign to healthcare professionals that something real is happening. There's also supporting evidence from studies involving trauma recovery. People who've been through tough life events, whether violence, serious accidents, or major losses, face both psychological and physical struggles that disrupt sleep and recovery. Hospitals and clinics now regularly use Buddhist-derived sleep listening as a piece of trauma therapy. Research finds that when trauma survivors practice these nightly routines, they experience fewer flashbacks, better emotional control, and steadier rest. Often they become more able to handle talk therapy and other recovery processes during the day because the sleep hours are calmer and more restorative. It's true, not every study finds the exact same level of benefit, and these routines aren't a replacement for medical care when serious problems are happening. But what's convincing is the sheer amount of positive change across different countries, age groups, and types of health conditions. The biggest improvements tend to show up when people are consistent, using sleep listening most nights, even for just 15 or 20 minutes. The effects are cumulative, not just a one-off relaxation trick. Researchers are also learning about the impact of compassion-based sleep listening in group or family settings. Studies in community housing, group recovery programs, and even sports teams show that when several people share a consistent guided sleep meditation routine, they don't just sleep better. There are fewer arguments, better cooperation, and an overall sense of trust that strengthens as time goes on. Group brain scans actually show synchrony, a kind of alignment in the calmness centers of the brain, just from listening to the same peaceful tracks together. One reason why Buddhist-inspired sleep listening works so well has to do with how it deals with the whole person, not just single symptoms. Instead of focusing purely on sleep, pain, or mood alone, it's about encouraging a mind and body reset from all angles. Many hospital-based research programs use routines that mix body scanning, compassion statements, gentle breathing, and sometimes chanting or music in a single session. Participants rate these as more helpful than sleep medication alone, and their medical teams see steadier improvements in vital signs, lower rates of readmission, and higher overall well-being. Another fascinating piece is neuroplasticity, which is how the brain rewires itself over time. Buddhist traditions have always pointed to repetition, mantra, affirmations, visualizations as essential for healing. Science is now confirming this. With repeated exposure to healing-focused audio during sleep, the brain literally forms new connections, making calm, comfort, and healing easier to access without conscious effort after a while. Sleep MRI studies show that brain regions tied to focus, pain control, and positive mood all grow denser and more active with months of regular nightly listening. You might be wondering if you have to stick with classic Buddhist mantras or if modern language versions work too. The research suggests that both are effective, as long as the phrases promote feelings of safety, compassion, or self-acceptance. Some people even get good results just repeating or listening to their own recorded voice, or a friend's at bedtime. The shared features of all effective routines include a calm pace, repetition, gentle tone, and plenty of encouragement for the body to relax and the mind to let go of worry. it's also worth looking at how these practices show up in large-scale public health efforts. International charities and disaster recovery organizations have begun distributing free sleep listening tracks to survivors of major crises and first responders. They're finding that families in high-stress environments recover better from shock and exhaustion when given access to structured guided sleep meditation, even over a speaker or old phone. Research teams monitor moods, sleep patterns, and long-term resilience, finding that recovery is faster compared to control groups who don't get the same resources. What ties all these pieces together is the recognition that healing is not just physical, it's also about calming the mind, building inner trust, and making rest a true resource again. As scientists keep measuring real-world effects, the ones that show up in lab results, hospital charts, family life, and youth mental health, it's pretty clear that Buddhist-inspired sleep listening has solid ground. Of course, nothing is a magic bullet, and results are best when these methods are used alongside proper medical care, nutrition, exercise, and community support. If you're thinking about adding sleep listening to your own healing toolkit, the scientific evidence should boost your confidence a bit. Trials show that most people can tell the difference after a few weeks, and the benefits build month by month. It doesn't seem to matter how experienced you are with meditation or which mantras or affirmations you pick. The biggest thing is sticking with a gentle routine, letting yourself experiment with different tracks, and paying attention to the subtle shifts in sleep, mood, and day-to-day resilience. That's the beauty of this marriage between Buddhist wisdom and current research. You get a practical approach that anyone can try at any stage of life or health. Hospitals, families, students, and even professional caregivers are finding real, long-term value in letting the mind and body heal together. Without drugs or big expense, just the steady power of nightly routines and the right kind of listening. As more studies keep pouring in, it's likely this approach will keep spreading, showing that sometimes the simplest, kindest practices are also the most backed by evidence. In the meantime, it's something you can test for yourself, knowing that what has been healing for centuries is finally being understood and respected by the medical and scientific community as well. When you put together all these scientific findings, along with the long history of Buddhist wisdom, it really becomes obvious that sleep listening isn't just an abstract theory or something reserved for monks or advanced spiritual students. In fact, just about anyone can begin a Buddhist-inspired sleep listening routine at home, even if they have zero experience with meditation or any sort of self-healing practice. The best part is, you don't need expensive equipment, a fancy space, or a complicated set of instructions. It's accessible, flexible, and you can shape it according to whatever works for your own life and schedule. Getting started with Buddhist-inspired sleep listening is basically a matter of preparation and small choices. Begin by deciding when you want to try the practice. For most people, just before going to bed is the easiest time, but you can also use it for naps or during periods of rest when you're lying down and able to relax. The actual how isn't difficult. You simply need some way to play audio. Your phone, a small speaker, tablet, or even an old MP3 player all do the job. The main thing is making sure the volume is low enough to be gentle, so it won't jolt you awake or distract you with sharp or sudden changes. Next, it really helps to check in with your actual sleeping environment. This is one of those steps that often gets skipped, but small changes make a big difference. Is your room as quiet and dark as possible? If you can, block out sources of light and distracting noises. If needed, use an eye mask or earplugs, or put your phone on Do Not Disturb mode so you aren't interrupted by notifications. Make sure your pillow and bedding are comfortable. The fewer outside distractions, the easier it is to let the sleep listening guide your focus. If you share your room or bed with someone, talk it through with them or consider using soft sleep headphones. Remember, comfort and a sense of safety are your starting foundation. When it comes to choosing what to listen to, you have a huge range of options. Plenty of audio tracks, guided meditations, mantras, and Buddhist-inspired sleep stories can be found on apps, streaming services, meditation websites, and even YouTube channels. Look for recordings that feel trustworthy and genuine to you, a gentle tone, soothing guidance, or calm chanting. For those interested in Buddhism, tracks might include classic mantras or simple guided breath awareness mixed with body scans and affirmations. But you don't need to pick something traditionally Buddhist if that doesn't resonate with you. The core ingredients are mindfulness, compassion, kindness, and an atmosphere where you can let go. If you're wondering about length, don't worry about matching a certain time. Some people start with 5 or 10 minutes, others feel more comfortable with half an hour or even longer. Many tracks are designed to loop or fade out gently, so if you fall asleep early, you don't need to wake up to turn anything off. If you're struggling with insomnia or racing thoughts, longer and slower tracks can help. For people new to the process, starting short and gradually increasing as you get used to it makes the transition much easier than trying to do too much at once. Setting a simple intention before you press play can really improve the quality of your whole experience. You don't need fancy words, just pause, take a few breaths, and quietly say to yourself, "Tonight I want to support my body's healing," or "May I rest and wake up refreshed." This small act of conscious choice helps your mind align with the message of the meditation or mantra session and gives your subconscious a clear anchor to hold onto through the night. Adding a little routine around your sleep listening practice also helps it stick. That could mean a quick stretch, drinking some water, or dimming the lights a few minutes before. Your brain and body start to associate the steps you take with slowing down and preparing for rest. With repetition, even these small actions become cues that help shift you out of stress mode and into a more receptive, relaxed state. As you settle in and begin listening, allow yourself to listen actively for a few minutes, following along with the voice, music, or chanting. If the audio includes guidance to scan your body, notice and check in at each spot: head, neck, shoulders, chest, arms, and so on. If you get distracted or your thoughts start wandering, don't judge or fight it. Just gently return to the words or the melody. Over time, this act of returning to listening, without pressure to do it perfectly, becomes second nature. If you feel unsure about mantras or are new to affirmation-style meditation, remember you can always pick tracks that focus more on mindfulness or gentle breathing. As you get comfortable, you can experiment with different kinds, like compassion meditations or tracks with Buddhist chanting. Some apps let you build playlists, so you can try different themes on different nights or adjust your practice based on how you feel. Journaling your experience, just a few notes or a sentence in the morning, can also reinforce your commitment. You could jot down how you slept, how you feel upon waking, or anything you noticed during the meditation. Over weeks, you may start to spot small patterns. Maybe your sleep comes a little easier, your mood is more stable, or aches and pains seem less demanding. These observations keep the process grounded and realistic. One of the best-kept secrets of these routines is how adaptable they are to special needs and changing situations. If you struggle with chronic pain, look for meditations where the guide acknowledges physical discomfort and invites you to observe or breathe around it, rather than resist it. If you're dealing with grief or emotional difficulty, compassion-based audio or sleep stories that talk about self-acceptance can offer deep comfort. If you feel overwhelmed, tracks with more focus on breath or calming affirmations can help you create a new emotional baseline. Children, teens, and the elderly can all participate. The language and length might need tweaking, but the concept is universal. Families sometimes use these routines together. Parents who put on a bedtime meditation or story for the whole household find children settle more easily. Partners or roommates may agree on a sleep playlist that supports everyone's rest. Even pets sometimes calm down when soothing sounds fill the nighttime atmosphere. If you live with chronic illness or care for someone who does, these routines give you a shared, gentle frame for the nightly wind-down. Over the span of several weeks, you're likely to notice changes if you keep the practice reasonably consistent. It won't always be a big shift. Often, the first thing people recognize is waking less during the night, or a feeling of greater relaxation as they lie in bed. With time, improvements multiply. Less agitation in the evening, more patience during the day, or even the ability to let go of painful thoughts more quickly. These are the markers of real progress and a sign that your nervous system is spending more time in restorative repair mode, which is when healing actually happens. If you find yourself struggling some nights, can't focus, restlessness sets in, or the audio is distracting, know that this is normal. Try a different track the next night, lower the volume, or switch themes for a while. Flexibility is built into these practices for a reason. Your needs and moods will change. Some nights will be smoother than others. The real secret is showing up regularly, trusting that over the long run, the effects build up even when progress feels slow. For extra support, it's totally fine to layer sleep listening with other healing techniques, gentle stretching, breathing exercises, aromatherapy, like a drop of lavender oil near your pillow, or writing out a few positive intentions can all work together. Some people add a loving-kindness meditation earlier in the evening or finish with a gratitude journal. The important thing is not to overload yourself, but to combine only what feels nurturing and easy, not just another task to check off. If you encounter skepticism, your own or from others, it's helpful to remember that this is a gentle experiment, not a matter of belief or perfection. The scientific studies backing these techniques have included thousands of people who also started with doubts. What seems simple is actually part of the reason sleep listening works. There are no complicated mental gymnastics, just honest attention, a little structure, and time for your body's natural intelligence to take over. Be patient with results as well. Buddhist-inspired healing is about gentle, patient effort rather than immediate transformation. It's totally normal to try something for a week or two before noticing changes, and sometimes you'll only realize progress by looking back after a month or two. Trusting the process is a big part of how these routines work. Even when you don't feel dramatic breakthroughs, your body and subconscious mind are taking in positive cues and slowly recalibrating behind the scenes. Some people find that after a while, their preferences change. Maybe longer tracks are more appealing, or they want to try listening to recordings in a language they don't even understand, just for the rhythm and calmness. Others start to record their own voice, repeating their favorite affirmations, or mix chanting with soft background nature sounds. The longer you practice, the more natural it feels to personalize and adapt the setup. For those dealing with bigger transitions, illness, or personal loss, these routines can be both an anchor and a reset. Each night is a chance to approach healing in a fresh, non-threatening way, not demanding results, but inviting your body and mind to do what they were naturally designed to do. Even if your health challenge is complex or ongoing, this gentle approach can build a sense of agency and foster a grounded kind of hope, which is often missing from high-pressure treatment plans. Community support, even if only online, can also help you stick with the habit. There are plenty of discussion groups and forums where people share favorite tracks, challenges, and successes with Buddhist-inspired meditation, sleep listening, and related self-care routines. Sometimes trading ideas or simply realizing you're not alone makes a big difference in staying motivated, especially if you hit a rough patch or get stuck in old habits. When things are going well, keep an open mind about further adjustments. Sometimes your favorite meditation will wear out, or your needs will shift with the seasons, stress levels, or sleep pattern changes. All Buddhist-inspired healing practices are alive, so they can and should grow with you over the days and years. If you travel, download your favorite tracks in advance. If you end up in a hospital or different setting, just lean on the breath awareness part if you can't play audio. These little ways of staying connected to your practice help keep you steady, even during unforeseen changes. For anyone new to the concept, a few simple reminders can help. You do not have to clear your mind or reach a special state, just being present is enough. It's completely normal to have doubts, feel discomfort, or lose focus in the first days or weeks. You are still making progress as long as you allow yourself to gently return to the sound of the voice, the breath, or the feeling of being guided. These are simple, reliable levers for the body's own wisdom to rise up. As time goes by, many people make Buddhist-inspired sleep listening a steady part of their overall self-care, alongside diet, exercise, medical appointments, and social support. It isn't a cure-all or overnight miracle, but the longer you stay with it, the deeper the benefits can go. Steadier sleep, brighter mood, more stable energy, and a kinder, less reactive relationship with your own ups and downs. By the time you've spent a few months with sleep listening, it often becomes second nature, a quiet, friendly presence in your night that makes everything else feel just a little bit easier. You get to carry this steady anchor with you, wherever you are and whatever life brings. If you keep it light, keep it flexible, and keep it rooted in kindness toward yourself, you'll find sleep listening is less a technique and more a way of life, one that supports your well-being now and shapes a more hopeful view of healing for your future.